This is Smarter San Diego TV.
Our next guest is the Mortgage Geek, Vice President at Cornerstone Mortgage Group, Sean Cahan, and his special guest, real estate expert, Max Folkers.
Welcome back to the show, fellas.
Thank you.
Great to have you here on a topic that's sort of been lost, unfortunately, in the news because of some shootings that happened between Orlando and Dallas. Everyone stopped talking about Brexit.
Yeah.
You know, we saw the Dow Jones has come all the way back up to 18,000 since then. So that is kind of lulling people to sleep, going, oh, it was just a little blip. But I think there might be more to this, Max, and I wanted to bring you in today so that we can discuss it.
No, it has been interesting. You know, that was huge news, a big surprise for the world as a whole. And that's in Brexit, for those of you who don't know, Britain's exit from the European Union. It came as a big shock, and it created a lot of uncertainty in the global financial markets. We saw a big fallout in the stock market, but to your point, it's kind of bounced back as everybody's digested it. And you know, one of the things we talk about in real estate is it's very local, hyper local. And this is a global event, and so the expression comes to mind, you know, think globally, act locally. And so we were kind of talking about, well, how is this going to affect the whole market and our local market here in San Diego? And, you know, there have been some interesting thoughts coming out. And, you know, one of the things that we saw immediately in the aftermath, you know, the Fed was voting on whether to raise interest rates again, and they decided not to. What we're seeing in the London or the British real estate market is a lot of the big commercial funds have actually frozen their assets because there was a run for the doors, and they just didn't have enough cash to let all their investors pull the money out. So it's kind of like, okay, time out. Let's everybody settle down here and figure out the game plan. And there's a lot of speculation on, well, how is all that in England going to affect us here in America? Again, with the Fed deciding to hold off on interest rates, not that directly correlates to our mortgage rates, but it does correlate to where the global flow of money is. And a lot of money that was sunk into Europe, the speculation is that will come into America, into safer investments such as the Treasury bonds, which, I mean, you can probably speak to how that affects mortgage interest rates better than I can.
Yeah, I think mortgages are probably the most immediate thing that we would see a benefit to, right, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, cheap money acts quick,
Yeah.
right? Like they start coming down pretty quick. But what's funny though about this time compared to like 2012 when the bond was near that, right? It was like 1.32, I think, at one point back in like 2012 or 13. Was the actual 30-year rate was lower. I think the banks were kind of like holding off a little bit and saying, hold on, let's wait. Let's wait to see if it actually holds. Then we'll adjust them. And obviously it hasn't really held because the 10-year is already back up to 1.5. It's not like, hey, jump up, enjoy, and it's not like, wow, we're already back up to 2, or back in 2014, I think it was the touch 3, right?
Yes.
So, you know, being at 1.5 is not, we're not climbing out of the hole, but the banks were kind of right in holding off and saying, hey, we're not going to go down to 3% and then come back up to create more volatility. And we lost 19 basis points this morning. So, I mean, it's starting to somewhat climb. But on the flip side, the banking rates, we're not actually seeing so much volatility because there was so much left on the table. So it's like, hey, I can still offer you 3.5 today, and it was still 3.5 yesterday, even though the market opened up 19 basis points less. That's what we're seeing on the rate sheet. There was a little bit more play. But then the institutional banks and the big box banks, Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, for their retail, are coming out with some pretty nasty interest rates to retain clients.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, I guess they can do that, right? Because at the end of the day, you know, they're getting the free money from the Fed.
Exactly. It doesn't cost them much to do so, and kind of retain the clients and gather the clients when you can.
I think that typically when we see like something bad happen globally outside of the U.S., it's good for us Because everyone kind of goes, wait a minute, what am I going to do with my money? Oh, I need to go someplace safe. It's the U.S. It's the only place where it's safe. It's the reason why we have all these people from China buying $1 million houses sight unseen in cash.
Right.
Because they would rather it be here in a house they've never seen before than in China with them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have that going for us. So I usually see things like that are bad globally and go, probably going to be good for us somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Good for us in the housing market, good for us in investments, the treasury bonds, some of the safest in the world, and you actually still get a return on your money, whereas some of the countries you actually have to pay to get your money
crazy?
back. Yeah, negative interest rates.
Just insane.
Oh,
And they were talking about the U.S. possibly going into a negative, but
No.
I don't think he'll. I just won't think.
Couldn't.
I don't think he'll.
Can you imagine if the U.S. was in negative interest? That means that the whole world is in negative interest.
Correct.
Right.
Situation. What kind of a panic would people have to be in to pay someone to hold on to their money?
Gosh, yeah.
That would be an extreme panic situation. But it's happening in other countries.
Yeah, I mean, even my mattress still plays even money.
Yeah, right? Mattress in your shotgun?
Yeah.
That's 0%.
That is a thumbs up.
Hey, when I wake up in the morning, it's still the exact same amount it was when I went to bed. So
That's great. Well, I mean, I see it as probably a good thing for us in the long run. But I do wonder about some of that foreign in San Diego.
well,
Okay?
I think you
Because
bring up
foreign investment is kind of a big deal, and if they start to get a little cold feet on things, that
Yeah.
can change stuff.
Well, and you know what? In particular, they were talking about some resort areas like Florida that they do have a lot of British investment historically. God, I want to say the numbers were 26 billion last year of English investments in that area in real
wow.
estate.
Jeez.
And yeah, right.
a big number.
And so for that to come out of the market, there's certain areas that could certainly feel the pinch. You're right. Out here, we're a little bit more influenced by the Chinese buyers. I mean, we've got a property right kind of in this area right now that it's just offer after offer, cash, Chinese buyers. And a lot of them looking for their students. Again, uncertainty in the Chinese market, uncertainty in the European market. This seems to be the safe haven where they want to park their money.
I would expect that based on the Brexit, we will see people migrating to the United States. Whether that would be San Diego or not, I don't know, because there are certainly less expensive places to live in the United States.
Right.
But for the big money, San Diego's definitely on the map now. It's not just San Francisco and New York and
Right.
those big cities anymore.
Right.
It's San Diego's on there.
Yeah, well, and one of the things that London in particular is known for is that super high-end luxury market. We were talking, $100 million flats where people go to park their money because it's a secure investment. And now, not so much. There's some concern about the migration of jobs out of England and into the European Union as a whole, just as people want to create or keep those trade relationships that they've got going. And so again, it may, signify some of these other higher end markets, San Francisco, New York, where people go to park money in super high end properties, where the uber rich are going.
Well, I'll tell you, in London, they've had a security problem there for quite a while. There's been they have a lot of illegal immigration going on there. I mean, people just run in there, and it's kind of a mess in London. I don't know about the rest of the country,
Right.
but something like this could be a benefit in the long run. This is one of those things that might be an opportunity. I mean, if people are running for the door there, and I'm not saying run and buy, real estate in England, but I'm saying that this is what opportunities look like.
Yes.
Sure.
When people are running away from it,
Absolutely.
Do the complete opposite.
do the opposite. Go in and buy it from them.
Yeah.
So there might be some real serious opportunities, because what they could do now being separate is they could sort of like Israel become a silo and just like have their own stuff going for them, or like Brazil, for example. Some of these countries that are way more independent economically, and therefore they can afford to do more things like clean things up, hire more police, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So I think it could be an opportunity. It could signal potentially a really good international opportunity.
Yeah. No, I think you bring up a great point. There's two sides to every coin. For every stock that you're selling high, somebody thinks they're buying low. And you're right. Anytime you see those dramatic news stories, there is typically an opportunity there.
Yeah.
And I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, again, if we think about how all those global events are going to affect us locally, I think you'd agree that, at least for the foreseeable future, interest rates probably aren't going anywhere fast.
No.
I mean, you'll get your fluctuations like you always do, but by and large,
Fluctuations are good.
Yeah, that's fine.
You know, because they start to go up, people are still buying, they start to come down, refinance.
People can save money.
You know, and then they go down, then they start to go up, or they go down. People, refinance, cash out, so the banks are healthy. So it does. There's always an opportunity. It just depends on, kind of where you're located at.
Yeah, which side of the coin you're on.
Exactly.
Well, I was just curious if the big banks, the institutional banks, were invested somehow in this situation, where they were going to get burned by the Brexit. It doesn't appear that that's the case.
Wasn't Bank of America shutting down some branches?
I think there's going to be some stuff, but there's not going to be a catastrophe.
That international uncertainty may create a little more stability and prolonged growth here.
Yeah, I think we are luckily insulated in a very good way here in
Yeah.
San Diego from something like that, and from a lot of things, frankly.
Yeah.
But definitely from Brexit, I think San Diego is safe. Fellas, thank you so much for coming in today. Really appreciate your time. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
Stick around for more Smarter San Diego TV, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else, commercial free.
Our next guest is one of our recurring favorites. Please welcome back to the show real estate expert, Fredrick Remick.
There he is.
Hey,
Mr. Remick, how you doing, man?
doing good. Glad to be here. It's a little cold in here, by the way.
Yeah, we like that guy.
A little frigid. Glad
I'm
I
a sweater,
brought my jacket.
Vacation rentals.
Yeah.
This is a huge topic. I've been in the market for some time to look to purchase a vacation rental, so I'm glad you want to talk about this today, because I think there is something to it. First of all, I think it's huge for the marketplace.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Huge for the marketplace. But we'll talk about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I do know that it's helping a lot of people, the idea of vacation renting is helping a lot of people supplement income from their own home.
Yeah.
But also for investors, it's giving them a whole different way to look at ROI.
Correct.
So where do you start if you're like me and you're like, okay, I want a rental property, but I don't think I want the monthly tenant situation.
Right.
I want something that I can buy and I can go use myself, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that's really great about vacation rentals is that you're generating more income. So if you can imagine a condo in Pacific Beach, for example, you're going to get $3,000 a month for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. However, that same condo rents for $150 to $200 a night through Airbnb or VRBO. So you can generate $5,000 to $6,000 a month doing it that way. So that's one of the biggest benefits, and you can block time. So if you want to use it for a week, you block it out on your calendar, nobody else can use it, and you're still supplementing your income in the meantime when people are in there.
Right.
So it's really the best of both worlds. It does take the management aspect of it, which we'll get into in a minute, because that's definitely one of the challenges, is managing it. But from an investment standpoint, it's fairly new, because you think about investment and you really think about people who own apartment buildings, who own multiple unit properties, and they rent them on a monthly basis, and people like us can get into vacation rentals if we can identify the right kind of property.
Well, let me start with where I've been looking.
Yeah.
Which is Big Bear.
Oh,
Okay. So
Okay.
Been looking in Big Bear.
yeah, sure.
Kind of a vacation rental type spot.
Yeah.
I think the strategy in places like that are seasonal
Yeah.
is that you just plan on giving it up the whole peak season pretty much. Maybe you
Yeah.
carve yourself out a little bit of time there, but that's where you're going to really get paid.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then the rest of the time, you can rent it out sometimes, but use it sometimes. That's sort of what the way I've been looking at it.
Right.
It's a very seasonal area. You can get into a place there for a reasonable price point, and I like it.
Yeah.
So those are my criteria.
Gotta like it.
Yeah, right. You got to like it yourself. Like
Yeah,
you got to buy
absolutely.
a place that you like yourself, that you
Yeah.
could either live in or
Sure.
that you would want to visit.
Right. So my wife and I have a place in Lake Arrowhead,
Okay.
25 miles from there.
Yeah.
And we looked at Big Bear and Lake Arrowhead. We chose Lake Arrowhead just for the family aspect and things like that. But you're right, the mountain areas up here are great because you can hit them in 2.5 hours. And you can rent them, especially in Big Bear, obviously. They have the ski resorts. You can rent them all winter long. And there are some people that will rent it in the summer, but you're right. Most of your return on your investment is going to be got during the winter. And then you can use it anytime you want, though, which is the beauty of it. And it's you can imagine, too, if you can go midweek, for example. If you have the kind of schedule that allows that, that means you can rent all the weekends, which are your peak time, and you can go up during the week and still go skiing and snowboarding, and it more than pays for itself.
Right, it should.
Yeah.
That's the idea. So,
Absolutely.
but there's got to be some sort of method, I imagine, to the best practice for figuring this out. As far as, all right, how much does the place cost? How do I figure out how much I can rent it for?
Right.
How do I know or have any idea what my vacancy rate is going to be?
Yep.
How do you start to piece all that stuff together?
The research is really important. Anytime you identify any area, whether it's, let's say you decide, I go to Park City all the time. Let's say it's even further away. Mammoth is another area.
Yeah.
Or summer vacation areas like Maui or winter Palm Springs. What you want to do is you want to look at what your competition is. That's really the best way to do your research. So what kind of place am I buying, and start looking on Airbnb, start looking on VRBO, because you can actually track what the booking is. So you can see how much certain places are booking out at. 80% occupancy, let's say, would be great. And you can also look at the price points, because what you'll find is that, especially like in Big Bear, so if you look at something that's, say, a cabin type of environment, and it's $200 a night, but during the winter it's renting out 90% occupancy, well, you look at the one that's $250, now it's at 60% occupancy. That gives you a good idea where you need to price your place at, and you can kind of work backwards.
I see.
And that's really important, because you don't want to just buy something blind and then go up there and there's no there's no customer base, because either you projected incorrectly or there's no demand. So you have to gauge that demand off of what's existing in the market first.
I think also what's important is to find a place that photographs well or has a feature, like a really nice feature. There was one in Big Bear that I didn't pull the trigger on it. Now I wish I would have.
Yeah, what did it have?
It had an indoor hot tub room with a sauna.
That's cool.
And it was custom built onto the property.
Yeah.
And for the wintertime, it's just perfect. They come in from snowboarding, skiing.
Sure.
And you don't have to go outside to get in the hot tub like you do in most of the places
Right.
there.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a frigid moment.
Yeah, it is. Or getting out. It's even
Getting
worse.
out, it's the same thing, worse.
Yeah.
So, to have that indoor hot, just think about how well that would picture.
Absolutely.
And how well you could sell that, use that as a selling point to make sure you're always booked.
Yeah.
So I think you got to try to find something that you can market too.
Sure.
That's
Exactly what you're talking about. Talking about marketing. So you want it to be marketing is all about telling a story. So when you look at a place, you got to figure out what your demographic is, who's going to be there, and then what is the story that you're telling when you market it. So you're absolutely right. And amenities are huge. So up in the mountains, it would be a fireplace, a hot tub like you talked about, some outdoor space in case you're going to rent it during the summer, so people have some place to grill and hang out in the, hopefully the woods, depending on what your environment you're in is. And then you go to, aesthetics and size and things like that. But amenities are key with marketing, no question about it.
Yeah, you got to have something you can point to.
Yeah, you can think about a tagline, right? It's a large, modern cabin, close to lake.
Indoor hot tub.
Yeah, exactly. Indoor hot tub, exactly.
Indoor hot tub. That's all mine.
I love
say.
that, by the way.
Indoor hot tub. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So let's talk about the San Diego marketplace, because there are a lot of people who are doing vacation rentals now. I question some of it. Because it used to be like, okay, vacation rentals, it's a coastal thing.
Right.
Right. That's where people want to be. But now you got people like in North Park. They're buying houses and they're vacation renting them.
Yeah.
Because North Park is a destination, Hillcrest is a destination. So you're seeing vacation rentals pop up all over San Diego County.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just wondering, is that a good idea? Are there places that it's a smarter move than others as an investor to look to buy one?
Yeah, I wouldn't be in way out in East County unless you're going to do event type of rentals. For example, let's say if you're going to buy a big property out in Lakeside or El Cajon, it's got to have the ability to have like a wedding, for example, right? Because who's going to go spend 2 weeks in El Cajon in the middle of the summer?
Very unlikely.
Right?
Only someone who doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah. Now, the other thing, too, to look at is when you're looking at what you're going to invest in is your upkeep. So a lot of places in San Diego, a condo seems like a logical choice, right? Because you're not going to have to be as hands-on. You don't have to go cut the yard. You don't have to go water the plants, etc. However, a lot of HOAs are cracking down on short-term rentals.
Right.
So that's one of the things you really have to look at. And you also, when you get into escrow on a property, let's say you decide to buy downtown, you got to look through the minutes, because a lot of these places are soon going to ban short-term rentals. So even though right now you can do it, maybe in 3 months they're going to vote on it, and then all of a sudden you've got a property that you intended to vacation rental, and you've got to go live in it.
Yeah, or do a monthly rental.
Yeah,
That
or
may not pencil.
or whatever their shortest. Could be 6 months, could be 3 months. So
Yeah, I think 90 days is what a lot of them are leaning towards.
yeah,
So those, condos, high rises may be a more risky proposition than now we're talking detached single family
Yeah.
homes. Then that's all of a sudden a totally different ball game. Because single family it's hard to get single family homes, west of the 15, for under 600,000. I mean,
true,
they're
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But are they vacation rental worthy? I'll tell you, there's also someone that I've been talking to recently a lot who is interested in our reality show, and her goal was to sell the place she's in, and she wanted to buy a place that she could then turn into a vacation property.
Okay.
Now her budget was like $400,000.
Okay.
And so I'm telling you, I was just like, well, I just don't know where you're going to find something.
Right.
Even if you're willing to put work into it, even if you're willing to, put some elbow grease in.
sure.
To build an extra unit is going to cost a lot of money. To build an extra room is going to cost a lot of money. But her thought was that maybe it could buy a house and then it could vacation rent one of the bedrooms, and then I could monthly rent one of the other bedrooms.
Right.
And then eventually rent out the bedroom that I was in, and
Right.
now go do it again.
Right.
So does the vacation rental circumstance or idea, does it make sense for someone like that too?
It can, yes. That's going to come down to the management of it. Do they have the time to put in to manage that? Because you're talking about a lot of time when you're renting out 3 separate rentals within one home, and then you've got to manage it, or you've got to hire somebody to manage it. But those kind of people don't really exist that manage short-term vacation rentals. Most property managers are monthly rental people, unless you go down to, say, Mission Beach. Then you'll find some vacation rental property managers, but they're not cheap.
Yeah, they aren't.
So you're talking about 15% generally on all your revenue. So you can
Okay.
just take that right off the top. If you do have the time to put into it, sure, it could work. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's something that's just going to require a lot of
management.
yeah.
Yeah.
of maintenance.
Yeah, and
you will.
and you've got issues with people sharing a shared space where they don't know each other. So they go in the living room and they don't like each other. Now you got to step in and figure out how to reconcile that. So yeah, it creates some problems.
I was discouraging, just so you know. I didn't think it was a good idea.
Yeah.
Because, I understand the concept of wanting, because back home where I'm from in Missouri, that's what everybody does. You buy a duplex, you live in one side, rent out the other.
Sure.
And eventually you rent out your side, you buy the next duplex.
Right, yeah.
And that's just what you do.
Yeah.
We don't really have that option here in San Diego. And she sort of wants to create that reality for herself.
Yeah.
And you can go and you can buy a duplex, but you're probably looking at $700,000 or $800,000.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it's in at all a desirable area.
Yeah.
And it probably needs some TLC.
Yeah.
So it's a tough thing. But on the vacation rental front, it seems that if you can at least get in the right location, for example, even if you have a 400 square foot condo in PB,
Yeah, oh yeah.
that will vacation rent.
Absolutely, yeah. And then, like I said, you just have to check CC&Rs and things like that. There are a lot of them that do allow it, so I'm not being discouraging, but
Some don't. Not all have HOA.
you just have to recognize that that is a possibility, that when you get into escrow, that you've got to look through the CC&Rs real close and make sure you can do it.
Right.
There's a couple of them, like in the Ocean Beach area, that pencil out great. There's Pacific Isles one. They go for about $250,000, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and they clearly allow short-term rentals. And mile to the beach. So I think the other thing to remember too is people that come in from out of town, we're used to San Diego, so we think, oh, it's got to be right on the beach. But it really doesn't. It can be within striking distance. A bike path, so you provide bikes, a hiking trail, a walking trail, whatever it is. I mean, you could probably go a couple miles from the beach, and for somebody who's from the Midwest or the East Coast, it's like paradise, right? It's not a big deal.
Yeah, if you're 6 blocks from the beach, that's pretty much beachfront for someone who's out of town.
So you shouldn't eliminate properties just because of their proximity to the beach. You got to look at population densities around it, what's there, what you can offer, amenities like you talked about within. If it's a condo complex, it's got a pool, it's got a jacuzzi, it's got a workout facility. These are all marketable amenities. So
And that's key.
absolutely.
Fredrick Remick, thank you so much for
Hey,
coming
you're
in today,
welcome.
my friend. Really
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it.
Stick around for Senior Stay or Go TV right here on Channel 4.
People being able to walk to get something to eat or walk to the beach, those are all things that will improve everybody's quality of life.
because I think at our stage of life we need that. We need to feel that we can have some fun and not feel guilty.
We look for people who care about our seniors and who want to work at Wesley Palms.
Because everybody's idea of what's best is very different.
I'm looking forward to signing up.
Yeah, we'll have a place for you.
Welcome to Senior Stay or Go TV. Today we have two guests from Abrios Biosciences. We have Dr. Bradley Messmer, who's the CEO, and we have Dr. Dina Uzri, who is the Chief Scientist. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome
Very happy to be
show.
here.
It's an honor to have you here. It's been a while in coming, and we really appreciate you joining us today. So, I'm going to call you Dr. Brad. Tell us a little bit about the background of the company you founded, when you founded it, and really its mission.
Okay, so Abrios Biosciences was founded 3 years ago. I'm still part-time faculty at UCSD, where I work in the Cancer Center, and we decided to found the company to try to commercialize technologies we had developed in the more academic research basis. And the goal of the company is to bring to market tests that measure the levels of very expensive drugs so that patients can be dosed properly. And for the last 3 years, we've been developing prototypes of our first products, setting up collaborations with clinical partners, and doing all the things a company needs to do to go from an academic idea into a commercial product.
So we're looking for funding.
Of course, that never ends.
And again, before we move on to the next question, I just want to say how important it is for the people listening. Patty and I in our work continually see people over-medicated. And we salute this product. We are passionate about your product, getting it to market and getting it on everybody's kitchen table, because that is the one thing that we rail against when we are with seniors is who's helping them take. You can't give the same prescription to everybody and expect the same result. It doesn't make any sense. So we honor you and salute you, and we're passionate for your product.
Same prescription and same dose. So you talk about personalized medicine. Can you define that? Because that word probably gets used somewhat generically, but it probably has a more specific, real definition.
Yeah, so personalized medicine and precision medicine are buzzwords right now. And generally what it's thought to mean is that you want to give the right patient the right drug. Particularly, for instance, in cancer, we now know a lot about the underlying basis of cancer. And so a drug that'll work in one person won't work in another person, even with the same type of disease. So traditionally, that's been what personalized medicine has meant. But what we think is really a significant portion of that is you have to have the right drug for the right patient, but you also have to have the right dose. And you may even have the right drug, but if a patient's body gets rid of the drug too quickly, it's not the right drug for that patient. And so that's the part that we think is missing right now and what we're aiming to achieve with our products.
Awesome.
So Dina, let's ask you. You're the chief scientist. What is your role in the company, and why is personalized dosing so important?
So when I joined the company about 2 years ago, I helped to write some of the initial grants to help get the funding to start our first laboratory and really build out our first tests. And so we did a lot of rapid prototyping, and I learned the technology hands-on, and have been really building out our pipeline and to build the different tests that we have against all the different drugs that are out there for both cancer as well as chronic diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, and so forth. And personalized medicine has become really an important issue as we understand that people are really variable and that the drugs right now are dosed one size fits all. And so we really need to fine-tune that dosing and make sure that patients are getting the right amount, not too much and not underdosed where they don't get any clinical benefit at all.
A little bit about the product itself. How will it work?
So one of our first prototypes, which I can actually show you, it's like a finger stick blood test. And so this is a 15-minute blood test, and you would take a finger prick of blood and you would apply it to this hole right here, and it would run on this pregnancy-like test strip, which is inside. It's kind of like a glucose test. And it would provide a measure of the drug level in your blood and tell you in real time how much drug you actually have in your body, so that you can then tie that to what we understand about that drug and where it should be and where you should be, and then better optimize your next dosing.
And this device could live in the clinician's office, or ultimately, since many of these drugs are given by injection with the patients themselves, we look to have a home version that's Bluetooth enabled and can talk to the cloud, so that way a patient wouldn't even have to go into the clinic. The doctor would know that that patient's dosing is correct, or if it needs to be adjusted, could tell them, well, maybe wait a few days or postpone your next dose for a week.
It's just such a monumental cost-saving device. I mean, Patty and I have clients that are in their 80s on their they have iPhones, their iWatch, not iPhone,
the watch, the
iWatch. So I'm sure it could all come together. They could probably read out their findings on their iWatch and certainly some of their smartphones.
And that's one thing I don't think, at least I didn't appreciate. I mean, so many of these drugs are now so expensive. I mean, it's not like, take 2 aspirin and call me in the morning, where if you take 3, big deal. But we're talking about drugs that cost on the order of $1,000 to $5,000 to $8,000 a dose. So in patients with arthritis or chronic diseases that are taking these every 2 weeks or every month, we're talking about annual costs in the tens, in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars. So getting the dose right has significant economic impact as well as for the health of the patient.
So you talk about the economic impact, and I understand that you haven't really begun your clinical trials yet to really put a defined number to it. But do you have a range of where you think you're going to be targeting to actually have a cost effectiveness?
Yeah, so in general, there's actually quite a bit of data in the literature now that shows that for most of these types of drugs, because of pharma's one-size-fits-all dosing approach that Dina mentioned, about a quarter to a third of patients are probably getting way more than they need. And so you can just kind of do some back-of-the-envelope math and say, well, if you just get those patients right, as well as identify the patients that aren't responding to the drug, the savings are going to be significant. So 25 to 35% of a $100,000 a year drug is, the single. Yeah, that's a very effective way of bringing healthcare costs down. And in fact, these types of drugs are the single biggest driver of the increase in healthcare costs in the United States. So this is really important. We can't keep paying this much for drugs and give them to everybody.
Yep.
Have we knocked on the head of Medicare's door and said, people?
We would like to. Medicare is like any government entity, is a very large beast, and one that you get 1 or 2 bites at the apple. So we have to time that knock very carefully once we have the right data. But
to be able to get on the formularies and things like that.
Yeah, that's we work in a regulated industry, so there are lots of rules and there's lots of intermediate steps that we have to do to show that we are delivering a quality product. We have to go to FDA for some of our products.
Okay,
get approval.
It is FDA.
Yeah,
so this kind of device would be FDA. There is the possibility that we can offer a lab-based test where a doctor can draw blood and send it to a lab, and we're actually launching our first product for a lab test in a few months.
Oh, awesome.
And then in Europe, there's sort of an intermediate. We can get what's called a CE mark, which is their equivalent of FDA. So you still need to have all the quality systems and show that your stuff actually does what it's supposed to, but you can go to market a little bit faster in Europe. So we're looking at all of those.
Does it make sense for people who are going to view this and get on your website and like a wait list if they were interested in clinical trials down the road?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility. I mean, we want to get our story out there. We want people to be aware of the current state of medications for these types of diseases. And then I think, if they have doctors who are, especially at academic centers, we would be interested in working with these doctors and setting up a clinical study at that location.
Well, that's what we're going to do.
Point.
We're going to get that done. So when do you see the test being available to patients?
The clinical trials.
Yeah, so our first product will be for the drug Tysabri, which is used in multiple sclerosis. And it actually has a very dangerous side effect that's associated with excessive dose levels. So we're going to launch that laboratory-based test, hopefully in the next few months. We're in the process of getting it validated right now. And we are pushing forward with that because the MS physicians, the patients that treat these, or the doctors that treat these patients, they told us we need this right now. We can't wait for FDA on a device, so we're going to bring that to market as fast as we can. Our first home use tests will take several more months, and the FDA process is at least a year.
Well, Dr. Brad and Dr. Dina, we want to give you last word in terms of something that you want to tell the people who are viewing this and to spread the word. What would you like to say?
Well, I'd like to say to patients taking these drugs to ask their doctor, why am I getting this amount? Or how do you know that this is the right amount for me? Because the doctors generally, they have leeway even now without the data that we would provide. They actually know generally I could probably give this one a little more or a little less. And so I think the personalized medicine revolution is coming, and the doctors are at the forefront of it. So patients can help sort of nudge their physicians to become, as Dina likes to say, precision physicians.
I like that. I'm going to write that back. Right? I steal that from you now.
And then certainly if they want to visit our website, which is www.abreos.com, patient testimonials or just interest from people that are taking these medications
awesome.
are very valuable for us in showing that there's a need and a demand for our products.
Well, we highly encourage that. And on today's show, one of our guests is going to be a geriatric care manager. And that is really their job, and that's somebody I think would be good for you guys to connect with, because the geriatric care manager is the intermediary between a patient and the physician in terms of what are all these drugs doing. So they would be somebody who would really somebody to connect with as well. So
yeah.
we'll do that.
And actually, another side benefit of our products is that you can tell that a patient's taking their drugs, which particularly in the geriatric setting, adherence to medication schedules is a big problem. So there's several other benefits outside of the direct cost analysis.
Awesome.
Wow. Thank you so much. That's amazing.
Thank you.
We San Diego, we are encouraged for your success, and we are going to see it through to big things. So thank you for being here today. So stay tuned for more Senior Stay or Go TV.
Japan, Italy,
France, Casa De Mañana Retirement Community, a world by the sea.
Cape Cod, Chicago,
a world-class location overlooking the Pacific. The art and culture of La Jolla Village just outside your door.
La Jolla, my home.
Casa De Mañana, full-service retirement living on the La Jolla coast with the ease of a monthly fee.
Today we have 3 guests from the Casa De Mañana Front Porch community in La Jolla. We have Justin Weber, who's the executive director. Welcome.
Thank you.
We have Ken Suarez, who is a resident at Casa De Mañana. And we have Kelly Hillegeist, who is the life enrichment director at Casa De Mañana. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for coming in from beautiful La Jolla. I know the sun is out and the surf's up, and it's a beautiful place and beautiful weather that we've had in San Diego, so thank you for coming today. Justin, let's start with you. Tell us about life enrichment at Front Porch. What does that mean, and how are you trying to make that part of the organizational culture within the world of Front Porch?
Yeah, well, traditionally, when you think of senior communities, if you hopped on the bus right now and I told somebody I worked at a senior community and some of the things that we do for seniors, they'd say, oh, you play bingo, you do activities. And activities, that name in itself, I think, kind of said, what are we trying to do for people? Are we showing people entertainment? Are we having these docile individuals come and we entertain them? No, what we really do is we are enriching people's lives, and so we made a conscious culture shift to call it life enrichment. And what life enrichment is that we're touching people in a variety of ways, physically, mentally, spiritually, socially, vocationally, and trying to plan events, programs that will match those people's needs, because really all of those things are what make us us. I mean, we always want to continue to learn. We always want to continue to have fun. We want to continue to do the things that stimulate us. And so as Kelly plans her calendar for the month, she's talking to Ken, she's talking to the other residents saying, what do you want to do? What do you like to do? And then trying to keep all those different things in mind to make sure that we're matching all those different aspects to the programs that we're providing.
That's great.
So a lot of time goes into, obviously, coming up with the programs and getting the residents engaged. And so how do you get them engaged, and what kinds of programs do you offer? Can you give us some examples so we can, instead of just generally, like what specifically you might?
I'll let them talk more specifics, but as far as how we get residents engaged is we're open to conversation all the time, making sure that we are available and open and having those discussions of what do you want to do, and did this work? Did this, we went to the races last month or whatever it happened to be. Did you have fun? Do you want to do that again? Did we have a good crowd? Did everybody enjoy themselves? So I think a lot of it's just the people part of it, of making sure that we're open to those conversations. And there's a lot of planning that goes into it. Obviously, there's logistics and transportation and tickets to a lot of these things, and bringing a lecturer in, that person's got to be available and ready and all those types of things. So a lot of the planning aspect of it is big. Talk specifics, Kelly.
Yeah, Kelly, give us some examples of programs at the community.
Sure. Well, I think a lot of it is a matter of trying to touch on as many of those dimensions of well-being that Justin mentioned, and it really starts with knowing the residents on an individual level, but also on a community level, and listening. Really listening. And we have a lot of residents who are pet lovers and pet owners, and their pets are their children. And so catering to that group of residents while still considering the larger community. One of our popular events right now is our Yappy Hour, our
Great.
doggy play dates. And it brings residents who are dog owners, but it also brings residents who had dogs in the past or just want a social gathering, and they come and we have dog treats and toys and food and beverage, and everyone gets together and boasts about their little ones. A great relationship we've had for several years now is with the EC Language School, and they have a location right up the hill from Casa De Mañana in La Jolla, a block away, and those students come down for a variety of programs. They will be hosts with residents at dinner time and have meals with them and converse about the country that they're from and life experiences and practice their language skills. And they come over for presentations, and they'll talk to our residents and share on the countries that they're from, and there's question and answer and that interactive component.
Wow, that makes dinner exciting as opposed to just having a meal. That's educational and inspiring as well. That'd be fantastic.
And then our main and newest partnership that we're really fostering is with UC San Diego, and they are creating an intergenerational club from this relationship that we've forged at Casa De Mañana. And Ken here, he is one of our very active residents who's involved in the two main programs that we have currently, though there's a lot in the future to come, which is intergenerational walking group and our roundtable discussion groups.
Ken, how did you come to choose Casa?
Well, we're fortunate that mother-in-law lives at she lives at a retirement community in San Francisco, and she encouraged us to look into it and to move in soon while you have enough energy, mental and physical, to enjoy the activities. Talk about life enrichment. Our life has improved 100%. We feel better. There's a sense of well-being. We're cared for. You start out doing the right thing for the wrong reason, right? Because our motivation, very basic motivation, is no cooking, no cleaning, no yard work, no hassling with contractors to fix the roof.
Been there, done that, right?
Yeah, but you come here and you join a community of like minds. Actually, there are enough of us there that are going to find kindred spirits, and we have, and we did right away. It's a very supportive atmosphere there. As far as Casa De Mañana, well, we love the ocean, and we were familiar with the front porch community because we have a relative that lived in Santa Barbara at Vista del Monte. Also, Robin's great aunt and uncle lived at Wesley Palms until they moved on, they passed on. So we were familiar with front porch. I had a good impression.
And was it really your mother-in-law that kind of pushed you to make that decision? Because everybody always says, I'm going to stay in my own home till they take me out in the pine box.
We were in our home. We bought it. We fixed it. We loved it. We fixed it to grow old together in the house until what used to be fun gardening. I used to enjoy climbing a tree with a pole saw. I thought, macho man. I almost fell out of the tree once. And then it became a chore, and we hired a gardener. Then I thought, well, let's just garden. It was time. And mother-in-law encouraged us, go early. And she's right. Our fellow residents always say, I wish I had come early, especially the new widowers who say, you know what, I wish I could have come here with my husband and enjoyed five more years.
So your mother-in-law is a very wise woman.
Oh, absolutely. She is, and she's one of my best friends, type of person you can disagree with. She won't be disagreeable.
We agree to disagree.
Yeah. So as far as Casa De Mañana, my wife, she's a researcher. So she wants to Department of Health Services, control this industry. They sent us a huge list, so we narrowed it down to 16 by the ocean, that narrowed narrowed down to 5. We visited 5. Fell in love with Casa.
It's easy to do.
Exactly.
Very easy to do.
Every time I bring tourists to San Diego and we go by there, I'm going, this is where I'm hanging out in a few years, maybe sooner than later.
Exactly.
So tell us about the Intergenerational program. I know you're very active in that. Tell us more about that.
Well, you know, it's about having discussions. Love to have discussions.
That's what it is.
And it's about sharing different perspectives about life with people at a different stage of life. These young, intelligent people from the university, well, first of all, they're very interesting, and they have this natural energy that's contagious. Yeah. When you work, you have a variety of generations, and there's more diversity in any way of diversity. But then you retire, and everybody you know is retired in your same age. And talking to young people again is refreshing. Well, I'm enjoying it, and it has a revitalizing, gives you more mental energy, more intellectual curiosity. I'm enjoying it. It's an opportunity to interact with young people. These young people have vibrant minds. They're intelligent young people from the university. They have a high intellectual level. It's a pleasure to talk with them. They have different perspectives about life. They're going through a different world, essentially, than we did. And we exchange points of view. For example, the younger women who we've been encouraging to accomplish and join the ranks of executives and take charge of all aspects of society, economic, political. Well, some of them don't want to have children, and at first, at my age, I thought, well, gee, why would she want to have a child? Well, we've been encouraging to succeed in business, let's say, or be an executive someplace. Well, that executive, and I'm sure you will agree, they have a wife at home who helps them become. My wife ironed my shirt. You know, so I can see where a young executive on his way up, he doesn't have time to do all those things, and if he had all the responsibilities of keeping a home, he couldn't succeed. And so we came to understand that if they're going to succeed in business, to use that term, then they need to dedicate themselves fully to that endeavor. Among other things, but that was an eye-opener.
Justin, I'd like you to answer the question in terms of you as the executive director who handle an amazing group of employees and associates and amazing residents from all walks of life. What message would you like to get across to the audience?
Well, so we obviously have this beautiful location. We're sitting on this amazing part of the coast of California, right in La Jolla. And so people think, oh, everything's utopia there. It's the people, though. It's the community that make Casa De Mañana fun to come to work to. It's the people that allow us to have an opportunity to feel their joy, to feel their pain. I mean, it's a little world into itself. And, you know, as we talk about life enrichment, it's really, what do you all want to do, and how can we make this better for you? We've got 230 plus residents. We've got 137 staff members today. We've got all kinds of visitors and families that come in between. And so our world, you know, there's a lot going on. And so it's my job to make sure that our systems are working well, that the buildings, you know, that the salt air is not pounding the buildings too bad, and that we're keeping all those things up. But really, that the residents can have as much choice and opportunity to do the things that they want to do as possible. And so us setting them up in those ways is what's most important to me. And whether that be, you know, outings that we're going on, the food that we eat, the people that we're bringing in, there's a lot going on. And so making sure that their choice and their voice is heard is probably the thing that's most important to me.
That's a great mission, and I know you're all passionate about it. Yeah. We want to thank you all for coming on. Kelly, thank you. Ken, thank you. And just keep doing what you're doing, and it's a pleasure to meet you, and you're going to just have a wonderful quality of life at Casa De Mañana.
Thank you for having me.
And Justin, thank you for sharing these people with us, and we really appreciate you coming on the show today. So stay tuned. We will be right back with more Senior Stay or Go TV.
Japan, Italy,
France. Casa De Mañana Retirement Community, a world by the sea.
Cape Cod, Chicago.
A world-class location overlooking the Pacific. The art and culture of La Jolla Village just outside your door.
La Jolla, my home.
Casa De Mañana. Full-service retirement living on the La Jolla coast with the ease of a monthly fee.
With the help of Comfort Keepers, I'm keeping my mom healthy.
I'm keeping Dad on schedule.
I'm keeping my mom happy.
Comfort Keepers in-home professional caregivers can provide meal planning and preparation, health and wellness services, and personal care services through custom care plans that can change as needs change, so your aging loved ones can stay happy and healthy in their own home.
Comfort Keepers, keeping the comfort of home.
Today we have a great guest. Her name is Marguerite Parsons. She is an aging life specialist and the owner of Boutique Care Management. Welcome.
Thank you.
Marguerite, thank you for coming in today to speak with us. And Aging Life Care is also known as geriatric care management. So please explain to the audience, what is geriatric care management?
Geriatric care managers are experts and advocates that get hired by families and fiduciaries, attorneys to help clients navigate the healthcare system. We are compasses in expertise in geriatric care. We get hired to be the quarterback on a healthcare team. We are ones that have expertise in all affairs that have to do with aging well, whether it be aging in place in your home and needing the supportive care of a home care company like Comfort Keepers, or needing the expertise of a new pharmacist, a physician, whatever it may be. Other times, care managers get hired to help folks move into assisted living facilities or senior communities, and we have the expertise in knowing what the options are out there and what the different factors are in needing to make those decisions. Typically, when we start with a new client, we'll go in and do an assessment and put together a document of recommendations of what we think may be helpful to an individual to start that process. So we really are the experts in the field of aging, and we like to say aging well.
And what is your background a little, in terms of that gives you this position?
Right. So care managers can come from all sorts of disciplines. I am part of the National Aging Association, and we have certain credentials that I have met. Care managers could be gerontologists, they could be nurses such as myself, sometimes they're psychologists, and we have a certain expertise in that realm and certain credentialing. My particular business is a nurse care management business, so all of my staff are bachelor's trained nurses, and so we look at care management from the lens of a medical perspective, and tend to get hired onto cases where people may have issues with dementia, they may have issues with a lot of medication management. At times people are going in and out of emergency rooms, or they have this cycle of healthcare problems, and we get hired to help navigate those areas that we call seams of healthcare. When there's transitions, say, from a hospital to the home, those are areas where mistakes tend to happen, and so we are the professionals that get to be responsible for making sure that those mistakes don't happen.
So how does your boutique care management company work in conjunction with a home care agency like Comfort Keepers to provide the necessary care to the family? How do you work in conjunction with them?
So we have a really nice and long-standing relationship with Comfort Keepers, and often folks decide that they need a little more help at home, that they're no longer able to get to the grocery store, maybe they need some assistance with bathing, maybe someone's been in the hospital and come home and they've had a surgery and they just need that extra help. So we would typically be hired on the case to figure out, okay, what's going to be needed in order to make this person recover, convalesce, or stay in their home long term. A component of that would clearly be caregiving. And so we would work in conjunction with Comfort Keepers. They would have the caregivers in place. We would work together in terms of giving direction and a care plan to the caregivers. It may be meal-based, it may be queuing for medications, and our team then is the safety net of medical oversight for those caregivers who are well trained, but they're not clinical experts such as ourselves.
Got it.
And let's talk about our, I think Patty and I would agree that's our pet peeve in terms of how you are able to navigate between the medical world, the physicians, and the family and the patient, because that's really where the rubber meets the road, and that's really where I think your advocacy is so important. So tell us how that works and how you get hired.
So we are hired by families or different folks in the elder care community, and that is an area, the communication between the physician's office and the home or the senior community is an area where there is a surprising amount of need for extra support. I used to work in a very large practice in New York City as a nurse practitioner, and I would write prescriptions all day long, and my patients would go home, and then a month later they would come back, and often they had the same issue. And it finally occurred to me that there was something that was happening outside of my office that just wasn't being taken care of. And so for me, there's been a lot of satisfaction in what I do in realizing all the details that need to be managed and taken care of in the home, that in order to execute that physician's directive and that plan of care that physician or nurse practitioner in that office thought was happening. It may be getting the medication from the pharmacy, it may be taking the medication timed correctly, it may be taking care of the daughter who has mental illness. It could be all sorts of different factors that we have in our lives that interfere with that quick plan that unfortunately a physician is making with only the 10 or 15 minutes that they have to spend with us. So for us, there's so much satisfaction in being able to understand what the objective was in that physician or nurse practitioner's office, but also what the ultimate goal needs to be in the home to execute that plan. So it's really satisfying, and the best outcome is for that individual to age the way what they desire that to be, because we all have different wishes surrounding that, and our job is to honor those, whether they're the same or different from mine. They're clearly unique in that own person's life, and it's a really empowering and special opportunity to be able to help somebody work through what it is that they want as they age. So we're lucky to love what we do.
Quality of life.
So can you share with us an example of like a very successful case that you've had with a client, just to give an example to people, like, because you talk about what you do, but there's a lot there. So sometimes when you give examples of what you've done, it clicks better in someone's mind as to, oh, she means that. Okay, I've got it.
Right. So every person's situation is unique, right, and why they need us is different, because families are different and health conditions are different. We very much like to work with what we call geriatric teams. So those are groups of individuals that are experts that we come together in taking care of the seniors we take care of. And a typical team may be comprised of us as care managers. There often would be a caregiving company like Comfort Keepers on the team. There likely would be an elder care attorney. There may be a fiduciary and a family member. Often we get hired because folks don't have families, and so all of a sudden there's a senior that is living alone, and they may have one sibling or one child that's living back east, sometimes internationally, sometimes no children at all. And we've had a lot of successes in being able to allow those seniors to execute the wishes that they have for their aging. One example is, I know that we shared a case with Comfort Keepers where there was an elder woman who had long lived in La Jolla and had a very successful life giving back to the community as a physician herself. And she found herself without anyone to take care of her. She had no family left. She had a great team of a fiduciary, elder law attorney. We were lucky to be on the case as Comfort Keepers was, and her wish was to stay at home. So that meant that we needed to take care of all the details that comprised that scenario. And it was 24-hour staff, it was the details of getting her in and out of her own physical physician visits, it was coordination and communication. And we often take for granted in our life the details that are comprised in the phone calls that we all make every day to keep up with our health insurance, to get the groceries in the fridge, to take care of the house that's hot because there's no air conditioning. So that type of care plan and very tight team that's dependent on 24/7 communication, round-the-clock availability, and synchrony as a group is the type of case that we have been successful in, and that's an example of one of those.
So, Marguerite, whether it's aging life care or geriatric care management, I highly encourage people to reach out to you if they have a loved one they're concerned about, whether they are getting the over-medicated, the right medications, and their quality of life issues are being addressed. I hope more people will reach out to you and really understand what you can do for them to really improve their lives. So I thank you for coming today and sharing geriatric care management and what it's really all about, and the improvement in life you make with people. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So stay tuned for more Senior Stay or Go TV.
Hey, great show, guys. That's a wrap. Jade, what's your schedule look like? Do you mind breaking down the set?
Not today, Derek. I'd love to, but there's waves out there. I gotta go. Angela? Nikki?
Yeah, I gotta go beat traffic. And I think Nikki's making something up there.
Look at this. We did this. We did all of this.